You take my cold, it's a chilly cold night. Just make
Hola, bienvenidos al próximo video en este repaso por el verano por la clase de español de señor Bello de la Escuela de St. George's. Welcome to the next video in our summertime review series. This video is going to be about our subject pronouns. So let's talk about the subject of the sentence. The subject of the sentence is the thing that's doing the action. So for instance, the boy walks down the street. The subject of the sentence is the boy. Now, subject pronouns do what all pronouns do, and they replace the proper noun. Instead of saying the boy, we say he. He walks down the street. So we have just as many, if not more, subject pronouns in Spanish as we do in English. And the one thing we're missing in Spanish is the word it. Now, there's no word for it in Spanish in terms of a gender-neutral pronoun because everything in Spanish, no matter what you're talking about, has a gender. So let's get right into this. I'll just put these right here up on the screen. Okay, we'll just talk about the different subject pronouns, right? So the first one, yo, tú, usted, él, ella, nosotros, vosotros, ustedes, ellos, ellas. Right, now we have these six sort of points of view, we'll say. We have first person, second person, third person point of view, and we have singular pronouns on one side and plural pronouns on the other side. Now this is going to, this chart is going to stick with us throughout the rest of our time learning Spanish. But let's just talk a little bit about subject pronouns before we move on to the next section, which will be about verbs. So notice we have two words for you. We have tú and we have usted. Now this is a thing that will trip up a lot of language learners, especially when they're just sort of coming into the language fresh. You use the word tú when you're talking with someone that you're a little more familiar. So your friends, your sisters, your brothers, someone who's the same age as you, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger, but basically someone to whom you are operating kind of on equal terms with. Usted is used in more formal settings, and it's used with people that you want to show a little more respect towards. So for instance, your parents, your grandparents, like the police, your teachers, anyone to whom you want to show some deference to or some respect to. You sometimes also use these when you're not familiar with the person. If you're meeting someone for the first time, you'll call them usted. Now, the word vosotros and the word ustedes, they both mean you plural. Now, when you're in my class, I like to think of this as more like trying to define them. Now, in English, we don't have a proper plural you. We have the word you, and then we have the word you, and it's understood as plural. So like I'm in a room and I point at one person and I say, you need to do your homework, that one person understands that you is singular. However, if I stand in front of everyone and I say, you need to listen, people understand that you to be plural, right? But we have other words that of course aren't necessarily proper English to define when we're talking about a plural you. Now I like to use the colloquialism y'all to kind of go along with vosotros, and you guys to go along with ustedes. The reason is because vosotros is used once again in situations that are a little more informal. Now there are situations in which you wouldn't use the word y'all because you want to be a little more formal, but the word you guys might be a little bit more better suited to it. So we have vosotros and we have ustedes. Now one thing to remember is that the word vosotros is only used in Spain. It's only used it's not used in Latin America, it's not used in Mexico, it's not used in the Caribbean, it's only used in Spain. So if you talk to someone from Mexico or Honduras or Guatemala and you use the word vosotros, they're probably not going to understand you. They sometimes have their own kind of form of tú, which uses vos, but they'll say like, sos vos, that's you. But it's still not the same as vosotros. So do be aware that like when you use vosotros, you're talking to people who are a group of people who are you would normally refer to as tú, and if you're using ustedes, either you're in Spain and you're referring to a group of strangers or a group of people that you want to show a little more respect to, or you're in Latin America and you're using that. That's the only thing you're ever going to use. Right? So once again, vosotros sort of can be translated to y'all, just to have a distinction, and ustedes, more like you guys. And once again, ustedes will have a totally different kind of grammar rules assigned to it, and we'll get into those in a second. A common mistake is to think that ella means she, and ellas means they, ellos means they, so obviously he must be ello. Ello is a word, but it doesn't mean he. The word for he is el. El with the accent mark. El without the accent mark, of course, means the, right? So in the certain context, we have el, we have el. They mean two different things because of that little accent mark over the e. So sometimes it's very important to have the accent marks down. So once again, don't say ello, say el. So let's think, if the subject of the sentence was perhaps el profesor, what pronoun could we use to replace it? El, right, el. Okay? If the subject of the sentence was la profesora, what pronoun would we use to replace that? Ella, exactly. If the subject of the sentence was perhaps Juan y José, John and Joseph. Ellos, exactly. If the subject of the sentence was Maria y Lisa, what would the subject of the sentence be there? Ellas, exactly. Now, if the subject of the sentence was Juan, José, Maria y Lisa, what pronoun could we use to replace all of that? Ellos, exactly. It's a mixed gender group, so it'll automatically be masculine. Well, now we're going to talk about the verb ser. Ser is a verb in its infinitive form. Now imagine we've got the verb to be. To be by itself is in its infinitive. It's got the word to in front of it. It is a root word. And in order to use it in the present tense, in the present indicative tense, to describe what's going on, we have to change the word to be to something else. Now in English, we have 6 sort of points of view with our 6 different, we've got I am, you are, he or she is, we are, you all are, or y'all are, and they are, right? So mostly it's the same word. It's is, are, and am. Those are the 3 permutations of that verb, to be. But in Spanish we have a unique form of the verb for every point of view. We've got first person, second person, third person, and we've got singular and we've got plural. So I'm going to put these right here on the screen and just write them down on your worksheet here. Yo soy, tú eres, usted es, ella es, él es, nosotros somos, vosotros sois, ustedes son, ellos son, ellas son. Now, if you notice, every single form of the verb is unique to each point of view. The only exception, of course, being ustedes and ellos and ellas. But apart from those, normally speaking, if you look at the verb by itself without the pronoun in front of it, you can tell precisely who's doing the action. So we could usually just drop the pronoun and look at the verb by itself, and we could figure out precisely what's going on. So let's take a couple of examples here. If I put on the border here, if I say, yo soy profesor, that means I am a teacher. Now notice we don't put the word un there. When you're talking about professions, we usually don't use the word un or una. We'll just, now notice we could always just drop off the yo. If we drop off the yo, we just say, soy profesor. That means I'm a teacher, and it doesn't change the meaning whatsoever. In fact, it's just a little bit easier to say. So let's move on. If I say, tú eres estudiante, that means you are a student. If I just take off the tú and say, eres estudiante, that means you're a student. It doesn't change the meaning at all. So let's take a couple of examples here. Él es un chico. He's a boy. Ella es una chica. She is a girl. I can say, nosotros somos profesores. We are teachers. Vosotros sois estudiantes. Y'all are students. Ustedes son estudiantes. You guys are students. Ellos son chicos. They are boys. Ellas son chicas. They are girls. Now notice, and this is important, that the verbs don't change based on gender. They change on point of view. If it's the first person, meaning I'm talking about myself or someone else, if it's the second person, meaning I'm talking to someone, or if it's the third person, which means I'm talking to someone about someone else, that's when they change. They change if it's singular or plural. So just thinking of that chart that we put up, that we've been looking at this whole time, if you remember where it falls in that chart, is it first person, second person, or third person? Is it singular or is it plural? That's when you could figure out what verb to use. Last thing, and this video is running a little bit long, so we'll cut this short in just a second. If we were to perhaps use different subjects instead of the subject pronouns, what verb would we use? Well, again, we just got to figure out where it falls on the chart. What could we replace it with? For instance, if the subject of the sentence was, John is a teacher, what would we say? We could say, Juan es profesor. Because we can replace Juan with el, we can use the word es. If I said, for instance, John and I are teachers. Juan y yo somos profesores. Juan y yo somos. Because we can replace Juan y yo, John and I, with nosotros. If the subject of the sentence was Juan y tú, you and John, it could be Juan y tú sois profesores, or it could be Juan y tú son profesores. Because you can replace Juan y tú either with vosotros, if you're in Spain, or ustedes, if you're in Latin America or Mexico. But if the subject of the sentence was two names, like Juan y Maria, and I wanted to say Juan and, like, if I wanted to say that John and Maria are students, I might say Juan y Maria son estudiantes. Because, of course, we can replace Juan y Maria with ellos. Finally, if the subject of the sentence was like a plural noun, like los chicos, and I said the boys are students, I could say los chicos son estudiantes. Right, so you've got your worksheet with you right there with the verb ser and filling in the blanks with the verb ser. So let's see if we can take a look at those, and when you're done, just scan your little QR reader and you will see the answers and check to see if you're right. Okay, well, thanks for listening. Tune in next time and sigue hablando español. Keep speaking Spanish.
You're the best around.